Welcome to Founder Office Hours. Steve and we are here to answer any of your questions or any of your challenges that you are currently having in your business or in your life that we can help guide you through. And until then, we're just going to chat and have fun on this Friday before Christmas. So, how are you doing, Steve?
Good. Slightly, my energy is okay today. But I just had coffee and I did some push-ups.
Nice.
So I think I'm back.
I love it. Hi to people watching us. Whoever you are, we'd love to know who's watching. It doesn't tell us on StreamYard. If you could comment and let us know, we'd love to say hi. And also, if you have any questions or if there's any way we can help support you, I see 3 people now. Love it.
So Lauren, I was thinking that maybe we can talk about inbox zero, the practice of keeping our inbox to zero all the time, or as much as we can.
Awesome. I love that. Hi, Tim. Good to see you. Glad that you're joining.
Hi, welcome.
While you're pulling up that, I was going to say too that we're, as busy founders, we're always looking at ways to manage our energy levels. I know that's something that you just mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
sometimes you get a little burst of energy just by shifting your state. So, hello, Lauren. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. If you guys have any questions, please, that's what we're here for. If you need any support on anything. Until then, we'll cover this inbox zero with Steve.
While we are actually, I was thinking, since you brought this up, Lauren, would you want to talk a little bit about keeping our energy up? Because so there are a couple of things, right? We could be going gung ho and we're just a burst of energy, but let's say there's some, there's good day, bad day, good news, bad news, and maybe certain days it's just kind of not such a good day. So how do we handle that? And then the other one is, like, let's say physically we can sense our energy is getting low. Maybe it is fatigue,
Yes.
not or mental burnout. There are a couple of reasons where we may feel our energy being down. So how do we handle that?
Very good question. And first and foremost, self-care and staying on top of what you're doing to pour into your cup first is always going to be priority. And if you do have a day where your energy is a little lower, or perhaps you're going to be a little busier, you can be a little more proactive on your self-care routine and pour into your cup a little more to give yourself a little bit more energy and accommodate accordingly. Let's say you don't have that ability. You just really are just booked and you've done as much as you could up until that point and it just hits you. Shifting your physiological state, so really your body, and getting up and moving, maybe even going for a short walk, or I know you just did some push-ups, airing out your dirty laundry. And every entrepreneur has their thing, right? And I have a set of tools that I use. Working out helps me tremendously. Getting out for a walk helps me tremendously. Even something as intentional as putting on some binaural beats, something that can really recenter you when you're in a chaotic moment, versus listening to a more emotional song or something that will maybe pull you into a darker energy state, or a lower state is probably the better way to word that. So, and being very intentional with your energy and surroundings. I find what works best in my world, and I've become pretty skilled at this. It took time, was being very proactive, down to having conversations with people who are immediately around me, letting them know this is what's going on. what to anticipate. So that at the very least was not weighing on my mind. It's not stressing me out because I know everything immediately around me is taken care of and they all understand what I'm dealing with. So there's no unnecessary chaos, right? You can check that off the list. And then not only that, when you allow people to see where you're at and you're vulnerable, people can support you more. You can ask for support. You can, have people help you with things that normally maybe they wouldn't, but perhaps you need it more in that moment, right? There's so many different things that you can do, and everybody's so different. It's hard for me to really give you a blanket statement of what's going to work best for you. Best bet is to really write down and get clear on the things that work for you and the things that push you into a fearful, lower energy state, and get very clear on those two things: what energizes you, what makes you feel good, and what doesn't. And then curate in those moments, very intentional, the things that feed you versus drain you. So
I have found moments when I'm kind of maybe more emotional, and it just kind of, what do they call it? They call it the amygdala hijack. Like you just like your brain just like always it's like focused on one thing, and
yeah,
you can't focus on other things.
yeah,
I had those moments, and recently I've been practicing. Number one is just go out for a run, just run it out.
yeah.
Recently, I started reading this book called Shoe Dog. It's written by the founder of Nike, and then that's what they do. Like whenever they feel anxiety, something bad happens, or it goes out for a 6 mile walk. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that's a good thing because it gets your energy out and kind of puts your brain in another state. And then the other thing I also try to do is being conscious about what my mind is stuck at, and go, okay, maybe I just need to unpack this, right? My mind is stuck here.
Yeah.
So I can write down and this as an item and go, hey, okay, I'm going to unpack this. I'm going to find another time to unpack this. So I can focus on whatever is important, so I can prioritize. And if my mind just still keeps going there, I go, okay, obviously I need to unpack this first. So maybe I'll spend, I don't know, 5-10 minutes just unpack that. And that has been helpful.
I love that. Not everyone loves poetry as much as I do, but I will say that made me think about my open mic poetry night. I literally just unpacked something in the moment and then performed it in the moment. And it was so like fresh and it was such a release. Like the people there were giving me feedback, like, oh, I could just feel the emotion from what you were saying. I'm like, because I'm really feeling it. But it's good to get that out and to just release it.
And going with the flow, right? Kind of like, okay, maybe my body, my brain is trying to tell me something. So let's go with the flow and see what happens. And that usually is good too. I have in the past, I have tried to maybe suppress my emotions or suppress my thoughts and like go, okay, I really gotta focus on this because logically it makes sense. And maybe ignore a little bit of what my body and my heart and my soul is trying to tell me. So trying to find that balance has been helpful for me.
Yeah, I just started talking about this actually because I had at least 3 or 4 people mention toxic positivity to me just randomly over the last week or two. I don't know if maybe people are talking about it more or what, because I'm not aware. I don't really watch TV or scroll, but I was inspired to really kind of share a message on that. And what you just said is, I mean, I feel people get stuck behind this barrier where they feel like they have to be perfect all the time, or perhaps it's like added pressure, when in reality, when you're trying to avoid something, it makes it harder versus just letting it flow and just seeing what's there if you're able to, right? If you're in the middle of a meeting, you can't just start crying in front of everyone because something is flowing out of you. But, I'm just giving you an example, right? Controlling the time and space and being very intentional with it too, when you're able to, and just seeing what's coming up for you. And a lot of times these emotions and these thoughts that we're feeling are attached to something deeper, something that we're not even maybe even consciously aware of, right? It's like a core wound from childhood, or it could even be a recent trauma or something like that, or it could just be that you're tired and you ate sugar a few hours ago. Sometimes it really is just that, and it makes people feel anxious or whatever it is, right? So knowing that you have control over those elements and that you have the ability to really get to the root of those things and not allow it to resurface is a game changer.
Yeah, paying attention to it. I think it's sometimes we try to ignore. I don't know. I don't know what's the right
Suppress.
suppress, right? We're kind of trying to not pay attention to it, but sometimes it does take attention, and for it to heal, or for it to be released. And so I think being mindful of that, it's always I think a process of self-discovery, and go, okay, yeah, I think I need to pay attention to that. Or like, oh, no. I paid too much attention to it last time. It didn't work out for me. So let me try something else. So I think we're always right in the process of figuring out more about ourselves. And I think being intentional about that, and really listening to what our thoughts are. So talking about being, conscious founder.
Yeah. There are two different directions you can go with that. You can swim around in it, live in it, use it as an excuse and avoid it, or use it as a drug in a way, or you can really dig into it, feel it, keep positive up here. Don't listen to any of the stories that are going on in your head, but instead try to understand where it's coming from, release it. And when it happens again, you'll have a different reaction over time, and you'll be able to control your thoughts, and you'll be able to be more positive when your body is tempted to get into the state just due to external triggers or situations that happen. Sometimes it's, like I said, the food you eat. Sometimes it simply is that, there's a common belief that says, and it's on the progressive side of psychology, right? When your brain is inflamed and on fire, they're saying it's impossible to be positive and have positive thoughts. And I'm challenging that, because I was in the middle of those symptoms, and I felt it in my body, and it sucked, but I had positive thoughts the whole time. I chose to believe my body was healing itself, right? My point is, you get to choose the narrative. You get to decide the story that you're telling yourself. And that's where the power is. That's where the inertia is. That's where you can shift from being in a state of, oh, this sucks, to I got this, or I'm tired, to it's going to be all right. I'm going to make the most out of this, right? And sometimes it's okay to rest too. Your body does need rest. So it's a balance. I think there's no black and white here, right?
Yeah. And speaking of that, it's important to, and I don't want to delve too much time on this, but it's watch for our own negative self-talk too.
Yeah.
It could be like, oh, last time I did this and it didn't work, so I suck. We gotta be mindful of those negative self-talk too. It's a lot of times it's like let's say there's a lot of criticism out there, but if you don't let them in, nobody can harm you.
Right.
And really the hurt, can come from the most hurt comes from ourselves. So either we let the outside in, or we're kind of stabbing ourselves.
Accurate, completely accurate. And that's where your power is. So I find these things take time, and to be realistic about that is the best path to take. It's like building a new muscle, and I can tell you from personal experience, it's possible, and it's the most beautiful thing when you had a pattern that was negative and you transform it into something that's positive. So,
And I think talking with someone we trust, right? Having an outlet, and also more importantly, talking to a guide who can help guide our thoughts has been helpful. Me personally, I have received a lot of help from you to help guide some of those thoughts too. So that I think if you have the capacity to leverage that help, you should definitely do it. I think it pays heavy dividends.
absolutely. And another thing worth mentioning is you said someone you trust. That's huge. Make sure if you do proceed on a path to look for a guide, that it is someone that you trust, someone you feel safe with, someone who has the capacity that you want to build within yourself. Life changing for me too. I had a coach who did that for me, and I mean, wow, I came out a completely different person. So I recommend it to everyone. It's one of those things, it's like you can only say it so many times, you just either resonates with you or it doesn't. But if you want to change and grow, you'll make it happen.
So shall we start?
Let's
Maybe
do
with
it.
the so let me share my screen real quick. I'll just share okay, I'll just share a screenshot here. I just took this screenshot. Talking a little bit about the benefits, right? Let's talk about the benefits of inbox zero. I think it's pretty commonplace. Probably more than 90% of the people out there has a flooded inbox, right? I think it's a pretty common thing now. Everybody has an email address or multiple email addresses, and
Right.
it's a chore to keep your inbox empty. The benefit of doing this is it really clears your mind, because when you know that your inbox is empty, you don't have to worry about it. And usually I check it maybe 2 times a day or 3 times a day. And I only check it during that time. I don't constantly check my inbox, because if I'm constantly checking my inbox, it's telling me that I'm a little bit too obsessed. Like, I should be spending my time doing something else. And a lot of times when a very common practice is we read an email that's important, and then we leave it there, and then we just leave it there, and we remember. We just keep going, oh yeah, I remember there's this thread I got to follow up on. There's another thread, and I know where it is because I've read it. It shows read. And then all the stuff that's unread, I'm not going to worry about it. We have a common 60,000 messages, and I don't even go there. I have been there. You might have beat me. I don't think I ever hit 60,000. I thought I had like 10,000.
That's impressive, right?
And I already had a lot.
I think you deserve a trophy for that one.
Yeah, maybe we need a little fun competition. Like, what's the highest number you have ever hit?
I have to get my number out while you're talking.
After I started practicing inbox zero, I noticed that there's less things on my mind, because I already know either I'm gonna do it, or I have already done it, or I'm waiting for somebody. So it's something that once you start doing, it's something that's pretty easily maintained. And the first time you're trying to do something, maybe it's kind of hard, because let's say you have 60,000 messages. Do you delete it all, or maybe you can sweep it under a rug? Okay, one trick I would say is I can create a tag or a folder that says prior to 2024, and all those emails I just put it in a folder for now, so I don't delete it, and I can start fresh for the new year. So that could be a practice. And it's really simple, actually. It can go a little bit, we can go a little bit deeper if we want to. But the simple part is, let's say it starts showing up on our inbox. Either if it only takes 2 minutes, right? There's a 2-minute rule. If it's going to take me less than 2 minutes to do, I just do it. And then I delete it or I archive it. That's one. Or I need to do something about it. It's going to take more time. Then I'm going to move it to action. And you see I put like add action because it's an alphabet floats to the top. So it helps me sort the labels. And then
Are you showing something other than the screenshot? I don't see anything other than your screenshot right now.
Yes, yeah, it's on. It's here on the left. So
okay, now I see. I see it now.
I have,
okay.
Add action. So I want these 2 folders to be at the top of all my folders, and I call folders. These are labels. So add action. If it's something that takes more than 2 minutes and I got follow up to do, I put it in add action. Now, and then I need to have discipline of checking that on a regular basis. And if it's something I already responded to, but I'm waiting for someone else, I put it on at waiting for. So the inbox and then these. So basically, there are 3 folders that I'm checking on a regular basis, and I'm maintaining that on a regular basis, so I don't get inbox flooding. Everything else, I either archive it or I delete it. Couple of deeper practice is that it's a good practice to check it all on a regular basis. There are times where I'm so busy, I let it fill up again. Let's say I have like 100 emails, more than 100 emails on there. I start feeling a little bit anxious because now I went back to my old state again. So it might make sense to carve out some time every week to just like clean up admin task. I have found that more useful to stay organized. It is a little bit of an overhead, but sometimes I feel like organization is a really good use of overhead, because the more organized we are, the more creative we can be. Because now everything is organized, I can retrieve it, and then I can be creative about whatever I'm trying to be creative about.
I was about to ask if there was like a specific example, or maybe when you first did this, if you remember that like initial feeling of like, wow, like this is done.
Yeah, when I first get it done, I think I always thought, okay, man, I got this giant folder of the past. Do I want to sort it? I never sorted it. I just kept it so I can search back to it. And then another good practice is that on email client, you can set up rules of sorting. So if it comes from a sender, let's say I got a power electricity bill, I just have it automatically labeled, and I have another label called like family, and I have a couple of sub labels in there. So you can get a little more sophisticated in your organization and archiving over time. But the fact that here, so if I have my inbox that's typically always at 0, then whenever new messages come in, I know I can either pay attention to it or delete it, and I can continue to maintain that 0, and then nothing falls through the crack. I think that's also another benefit and advantage, is nothing falls through the crack. Oh, I forgot, because there's so many things floating around, and my mind, I'm using a lot of my mind power to keeping track of all these, and it's not necessary, because when I have a system I can trust, then it's good. Okay, so going back to your question, Lauren, about when I was first doing it, is that at first it takes a while to trust the system. So until I really trust the system, sometimes I'm still, maybe trying to manually track it. Okay. And then if I don't keep up with the system, then it further perpetuates the lack of trust to the system. And
So
you
you're
may
like
go back
sabotaging.
to your, yes.
Yeah,
So it's a habit
it's a
that you got to be
pattern.
mindful of. It takes a
Yeah,
while to get into it to trust the system. But when you trust the system, it's really good for you.
I love that. I was just thinking, I want to, if I had the ability or capacity in my brain power, I would create some kind of AI tool that would just like adapt to what you're doing and like sort it for you. Like that could save you some time.
Yeah. Yeah, like an AI assistant. Maybe even manage your calendar and your
Yeah,
appointments.
exactly.
I feel like it may be already in existence, but I don't know. I know of
I'm
some, but maybe not all. Oh yeah, there are some inbox management tools.
I'm curious. The
Uh,
first edition's never really that good, but
and if we want to go deeper into it, I would recommend that you practice to do it yourself first before you hire an AI to do it for you, because you want to, before you hire somebody, right? Even if it's an AI, you want to
right.
know how it's done first, so you know what kind of feature is useful.
Yeah. And based on that logic, I think that's pretty clear and useful across the board, right? So,
Yeah. So I want to take maybe just a few more minutes to go even deeper than this. Okay, so we may have different inboxes, right? So you may end up. So my recommendation is have just a few primary inbox. If you have too many inboxes, then now it's more of a chore. I have one for work. I have one for kind of personal, and I kind of stay within those two. It helps. Plus, we have a physical inbox, right? So that's already 3 inbox that we gotta keep track of. The second item I want to bring up is that this concept is based on a book called Getting Things Done. It's called GTD. You may have heard about it. It's a pretty classic business book that's just about creating a system that helps you manage the things that need to be done. And so here we're saying, well, the emails is one way of getting, receiving the task and all that stuff that needs to get done. And it could be some other things, maybe life or work happens and it doesn't come from the form of email. So what do we do? So there's a concept called building a second brain, which is based on the GTD, getting things done. And it's about creating a digital filing system. You can either use different note tools, like there's Apple Note, there's Evernote, there's, if you use Microsoft, there's the OneNote, and you kind of organize it similarly. So you have an inbox where all the new ideas, new things, you can start capturing. Either it's a thing to do or it's a very interesting piece of information that you want to keep it in your filing system, because the more you start keeping track of it, it's really useful information. It will help you retrieve it in the future, and then you can use it for future projects. It's very handy. I started practicing it for 3-4 years now, and like I'm just so much more effective and creative because of this system. So I really want to share this. I'm pretty passionate about this now. So you have an inbox that captures all the stuff, and then you go inbox 0 on that too, right? And we follow the same logic on the action and waiting for. Within action, you break that down to what specific action you may need. So let me look at my my setup. Oh, let me take a screenshot here.
Cool. Yeah, while you're doing that, I was going to share like a real time example. There was a time not long ago we were doing some coaching, and somebody was curious about a specific book, and you had the book summary. So all you had to do was a quick little search and send it away, and it was ready to go. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's very, very handy. So, okay, I have, unfortunately, I have 2 screenshots. So I'll be sharing one at a time. So let's look at this screenshot first. So this is the first part about the action. So I break that down into a little bit further. So I have inbox, and then I have execution. This is something I can do basically kind of right away. And these are based on the getting things done framework. So for execution, something I can do right away. So if I got a few minutes, right? Let's say I got a 2 p.m. session, and the person is 5 minutes late. Okay, I'll just pick something from for execution and go, oh yeah, it's gonna take me 2-3 minutes to do this, and I can just get it done. Right, I knock one out. There's for planning. So it's something where, let's say I'm planning for the next quarter, I can start documenting some ideas. And when I have more ideas, I just keep adding to it. So it becomes it's basically a working document. And then after a certain time, after a few weeks of just kind of marinating and churning that, oh, I got a plan. It just naturally came together. Instead of, before I started using this system, I was go, oh yeah, I had a good idea, and then go, oh, I forgot. And I got another good idea, and then let's say I write it down somewhere, and then maybe I also forgot.
That almost happened to me the other day too, so I resonate with that.
So having a way to constantly being able to do that, leveraging basically our mobile phone, right, a cloud system to help store the ideas. Our brain is really good for thinking and ideation, but not good for storing. So we're just offloading that memory part of our brain, long-term memory part of our brain, to a system, and that has been a game changer for me in how much I can get done. So for planning, could be planning for like a project or whatever, I would have another note inside here. And then I have a meeting agenda. So before every meeting, I have a habit now to prepare. And sometimes it just takes 1 or 2 minutes to come up with a couple of bullet points of how to run the meeting. It's much more effective when I show up and let's say we meet for 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Lauren, you know this, we've been having working sessions and meetings, right? If if everybody shows up, nobody knows what's going to happen. It's just a waste of time. You may sit down for like an hour, 2 hours. It's unfocused meeting. I have wasted a lot of my past life not being focused. So I'm very, I guess, conscious about that. Read and review. There's a lot of like people go, oh, you should read this. You should read this. Well, thank you, but I have so much stuff I cannot I can't digest it all. So now I save it to my read and review, and sometimes it pile up, and it creates some backlog per se. But at least I have it. So when I have the time, I can clear that out and go, oh yeah, now I remember. Now I'm all caught up on what needs to happen, and I can go back to the person that shared this with me and really thank them because they have good intentions. And a lot of times as busy entrepreneurs, I remember me in the past, I can just go, oh my gosh, there's another thing this person sent to me, and maybe the first thought was not gratefulness. And and I think when we have the system, we can be more grateful because yeah, thank you for your intention. And now I have it saved. I can read it. Instead of I'm so overwhelmed.
Exactly. Yeah, you're wrestling with that energy.
Okay, what else? To call people I'm gonna call, or like if there's something I want to communicate, to think. So there's things that maybe you just need a dedicated time to do deep thinking. And by clearing our schedule and having some dedicated time to think, but also capturing some of that idea. And sometimes you're thinking for a couple of things that all link together. That was good. And then I also have to watch, which are the videos. So Lauren, you have shared a lot of good materials with me, and that's how I was sorting that. So you might want to take a screenshot of this, right? This is a system that has worked, and I highly recommend it. And then there's waiting for. Waiting for is the same waiting for as earlier.
Thank you for sharing.
Okay, finally, and now I'm gonna stop talking. Is the
Don't stop talking. We enjoy
oh yeah,
it.
this is this is sharing, right? Well, I'll stop talking so you can keep talking.
That's funny. Also, I was gonna, I guess, kind of add on into the discussion, because let's say somebody is coming out of pure chaos, right? Like everything around them is just chaos. Did you have another screenshot you wanted to share?
I do.
Okay.
Oh,
And
here.
they're watching this and they're thinking, oh my gosh, that just sounds like such a burden. Like, wow, like how, like that might be their overwhelming thought. So my thought is to kind of give perspective, right? I grew up around a lot of clutter. I grew up around a lot of chaos. And for me, the simple act of adapting from that to becoming a minimalist. And I mean, I just posted, I have 8,620 emails in my inbox, but I still saw a huge, profound change in my life. Huge, shifting from that chaos to being organized at home, being intentional with everything around me, just really being more conscious in general. So going from chaos to conscious. And even though my inbox is not 100% there yet, and it will be, no doubt, and I'm looking forward to it, and I will definitely report back. But I just want to just add a little bit of a light in the dark for people who are maybe wondering about that transition, and there's a lot of good along the way. So
yes. I want to maybe add that a common thought could be, well, it's my mess, so I know where everything is. Right?
I feel like that is common. Yeah. Yes.
Right? I know where it is. So even though it's not organized, it's still good because it works for me.
Right.
So I think let me think, a couple of counter points. So first of all, on the other side, life is much better. And there are several ways. Number one is, we always think we will live forever, but that's not, the truth is that's not the case. So if it's always gonna be a mess, it will be a mess for other people that are looking at it. There's no way that they can take over and help us with that. So for the sake of either the passing down what we have, or on the lighter side, it is maybe like delegating some of the things that we're doing. In order to do that, we gotta get very organized, because if I can't even explain to myself,
right,
I cannot explain to somebody else who can help me.
Right.
Growing up, another point is when I was growing up, I always see the folks that are successful, they're always organized.
It's true.
You never have someone that's messy that can be very successful. It always becomes a ceiling up to a certain point. And
they call it the law of the lid, I guess.
Law of the lid. Okay.
Yeah.
That could be an application of that. Like there's a ceiling unless because if you're not organized, you're not going to be effective. If your effectiveness is here, everybody that can help us and work for us or work with us, learn from us, is gonna be here. They're gonna be in that ceiling, and your organization is not gonna be very effective. But if you raise your effectiveness, then you're raising the potential for everybody. So thank you for that perspective too. And when we first got married, we started organizing our life, because I realized that, oh man, no one's willing to do housekeeping, and the house is like kind of dirty. And I'm like, man, this is not gonna work long term. So we need to hire a housekeeper. But how can you bring in a housekeeper if your house is a mess? Like the housekeeper wouldn't even know how to clean it up, and and then if you cannot find something, do you blame the housekeeper? No,
You can't clean it properly. Yeah,
you
exactly.
cannot blame your help if you're a mess. So we did a whole Marie Kondo. That's when I arrived at the outfit that I wear every day now. Just clean everything out, and also organize everything in the house, and that was much easier. So in order to receive more help, I think being organized is a big piece too.
And being
Okay, so
open
last piece. Oh, go ahead, please.
and being open to change and not being afraid to try something new, just to at least test it out and seeing what it's like on the other side, you know?
I think if you are watching this right now, and especially if you're watching it live, it's at the end of year 2023. It's just one of the best times, right? Because New Year is coming. If you feel you have been stuck, if you feel that there's a ceiling in your life, like this is one sure path of breaking through and adding another dimension in your life.
Physical manifestation. Yeah.
Yeah, it helps. It just helps everything about your life. Like this is, to me, a very fundamental. It's like a foundation.
Got it.
In basketball, they always say, "Oh, you gotta know the fundamentals." If you don't know the fundamentals, you always have a lower ceiling. This, to me, is a big fundamental piece on our own effectiveness that will help grow our business and work effectiveness and life effectiveness too. Like everything just blossoms from there. So let me go back to here on the later of the category. These are a little more of a filing system. So I have projects are my active projects that I'm actively working on. Everything that has to do with different projects that we're working on is in the subfolder, and I file it into each subfolder. So I always have something. And before a meeting, I can go, okay, what have you been working on? It's very easy for me to see all the recent file and go, oh yeah, I'm caught up. So I don't need to keep track and remember. And as a result, I can take on more projects. I can do more because I have a way to retrieve the information.
Greater
I have
capacity.
a superhuman memory. Thanks to
Greater
this.
capacity. Yeah, it's an extension of your brain. Second brain.
Yeah, it's a second brain. It's a very powerful second brain. And from a memory, it's indexing, right? Storing it and filing it, also retrieving. So having a digital way to type up and you can retrieve those notes is extremely important. The second one is called area. So they call it the para system. Projects, I already talked about projects. Areas the project is kind of focused on getting some outcome done. Now, let's say the project is in the middle or it got to a particular point and I don't want to pursue that anymore. Like that's kind of good enough. I want to take on another project. I can save it to a bigger general area. So it's a different storage for this. And then I have resources. And you see I numbered this. So if you take a screenshot, right? So see how because it keeps things organized and in the right order too. So I put 3 for resources. Tends to be the reference materials. Let's say I do research on something. In the past, when I do research, I read it, and let's say I bookmark some, or maybe I just like forgot. Then the next time I'm touching it again, oh, I forgot. I lost it. I wasted all that time finding it. Now I got to do the same work again to do the research. Never again, if you have a good habit of saving this into these resources. And again, each of these have a lot of subfolders about different topics. So now you got it saved. And then archives tends to be like, let's say we have a meeting agenda from the past. Well, it has already happened, so I save it under archive. So there's always I'm also starting to keep history too, because now I have a way of keeping track of things that has happened, and that has also been very helpful. Okay, the last one. This is cool because it's someday maybe is a folder where it's like sometimes it's like the fun things we want to do, but it's not time to do it yet. I don't want to start a project, and it's like maybe some good ideas. I just file it under someday maybe, and maybe every year I'll look at that and review that and go, oh yeah, maybe it's time to do this project now, or maybe I have already started doing it because that has always been on my mind. And then sometime during that last year, it was a good time to do it, so I started doing it and go, well, if I had forgotten, it's still tracked here. So starting and adopting this system, I'm more than happy to be a resource. It takes some, getting started, a guide to get going, I think. And to answer your question about first starting to adopt, I think at first it could be a big sense of overwhelm because I have so many ideas in my head that needs to be captured. So you may first you will start feeling probably like, oh, I feel so good because I don't need to keep track of these ideas, these amazing ideas I have anymore. And now it's in text, right? And it's like it's got its own individual notes, so at least it's something. But then you got to organize all that into all these folders. So there's a sense of overwhelm. There's like a relief, and then oh man, I gotta decide: do I do the project or do I just sort it out? Like what do I do? So there's a little bit of work there. It's a really good investment of your time, though, I think, because once you're done and you learn to trust this system, wow, it's gonna work wonders for you because you're actually getting it done instead of getting it stuck in your head. How many people have you heard, or you may have said it yourself? Go, man, that's such a good idea. I came up with that already, or way longer than them, but they made it happen. It's because they were able to execute on it, and we are still stuck in the, all the clusters of idea stage. So this is a way to decluster, put it in an actionable form, and then now we're actually playing the game, right? We're executing and we're making things happen. And someone else is gonna say, "Oh yeah, I came up with that idea. That's not an original idea." Well, execution is king. So you're the one that made it happen. So you deserve the credit and the rewards and everything else.
There was a quote that I just read. I think it was inertia always beats. What was it? What was the exact quote? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I haven't heard it, but it sounds really good. It sounds like it's gonna end really well.
Basically saying that moving consciously is smarter, because if you're not moving consciously, then the inertia will get you to a place you don't want to be first. And I don't know why, because it's not really completely related with what you just said, but it made me think of that. And I guess it could be the case if you don't do this. So
yeah, it's a new habit, and to adopting you gotta, typically how we make changes in our life is when we really want to, right? Nobody can force a change on us, and those lasting effects, like maybe we'll do it temporarily when someone forces us, but like it's because I don't want to do it, it's never long lasting. So I think it's like maybe reflect on your life and like find the right reason. Like if this is really attractive to you, and you kind of see the potential of how it could be, I highly recommend that. This is a class that's being offered for like $1,000 per person. It's about how to organize this. And the folks that attended the class, my observation is they're all kind of high-performing professionals that they want to do it to that next level. So if that resonates with you, you want to take your game to that next level, this is a path to get there.
I love it. Love it. I was going to say, because you were mentioning just doing it and finding that reason why and pushing forward, right? I also want to mention it's kind of that busy founder state that some people find themselves in. Like sometimes people really, 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 really want to do something, but their schedule's too busy in their mind. And I'm curious what you would recommend for somebody, maybe a pathway for somebody who's in that state, to help them understand kind of like what's on the other side and how to get mentally, right?
That's a fantastic question, Lauren. Going back to your coaching, is that we all need me time. We all need to carve time for ourselves. And so the first step is, how can I carve out some as little time or as much time as I can carve out, and just spend that on myself. I think that's probably a good first step. And maybe in the beginning, you just need a little bit of breather, a rest, deep breathing, go out for a run, work out or whatnot, right? Invest in that. Eventually, maybe it gets to a point where you're like, man, you're just watching Netflix and you're not being as productive. And that's a sure sign to go, okay, maybe there's a better way to invest this time for my long-term future, instead of just kind of vegging and not letting my brain rest, right? Letting my brain rest and passively consume information.
Right.
I think the first step again is carving a little bit of time for yourself, and then you can start, if you can start developing a habit of kind of working on yourself, then spending some of that time to implementing the system would start working. And then it's about, okay, so let's go a little bit deeper, because this is now going a key thing that you can do to do that, right, to find your me time, is by doing 2 audits. And end of the year, it's just such a good thing. Number 1 is to do a time audit. Look at your calendar. Look at how you spend your time. Ideally, you should be keeping track of the meetings that you're doing, right? And let's say you have some empty blocks and then you're like not spending it very well because it's not actively booked, and so you let the time slip away. Well, those are really good time blocks that you can start looking at to work on yourself.
I have one statement, and also for the workaholics who like to keep themselves busy on things, maybe doing an audit of whether or not you really need to do those things too. Sometimes we're addicted to just being busy.
Yeah. So, there are times where we're not being very effective in how we spend the time. And there are ineffective meetings I have been a part of, and you spend like 2-3 hours just talking about something and not having a conclusion, a decision, and like new issues keep showing up, and you keep getting diverted, going all over the place. Perhaps that's not a good way to spend the time. And how do you eliminate the unnecessary meetings? Is one way to gain some time back, too. And so doing a time audit, how can I spend my time very effectively? And maybe I'm making an assumption that everyone is using their calendar to manage their time, and kind of setting up. When I use my calendar, I can start setting up like, okay, every day at this time, I'm gonna do some workout. So it's easier for me. At least I made the time, right? If I don't follow through, it's my own fault. But like my past self has already made that time for me, and my lazy self is not doing it. It's not my smart person, my smart self's fault. It's my lazy self's fault. So doing that time audit, key. And then the other one is called an energy audit. So when we start looking at our day, what's really giving us good energy? So if it's not giving us energy, can we let go of that? Can we delegate or get someone else to take on that? Maybe it gives them energy, because it's the personality that they're at. That will also help find some of that time back. And then if you just really don't have time, I would look at my bank account and see if I can afford help to buy myself some time.
There you go.
What else? I feel like there's more thoughts and ideas that we can do there, because it is a limitation that needs to be, right. We have to break that.
Yeah.
In order to do it, because our time, ideally as entrepreneurs, our time is unlimited in value.
I think really the main focus, and you've already covered this a bit, we all have different patterns, and getting clear on what our pattern is will help us move more consciously. And this is just me, like that's where my brain goes. Because once you understand that, it won't control you anymore. And then you can start to like fill in the gaps where, okay, this used to be the monster that made me do these things that you can like point a finger at now, right? Versus this is just how I am. So understanding your patterns, right? Like you said it earlier about the inbox zero. That was your pattern. Everybody's pattern is going to be a little different, right? Some people are going to go in and just like drink like 5 coffees and like hammer it out and then like crash for like 5 days or whatever it is. Everyone's so different. And I tell you that firsthand from having clients that are all completely different, right? But I'd say my pattern's more like yours. And understanding your pattern helps you move more consciously. And then from there, if you truly want something, you said it earlier too, nothing's going to get in your way. I mean, it'll try. And sometimes it'll be your old patterns. But because you're conscious about it now, you won't let it win. So
you okay, yeah. And there's so much I want to talk about this. Is that it's a little I wanted to continue maybe a little more here on the time, Lauren, is that I can buy time or I can sleep less.
Yeah.
Right? If I can sleep, 4.5 hours, right? Multiples of 90 minutes, if I sleep 6 hours or 4.5 hours, and I gain a little bit of time temporarily, maybe it's not a lifestyle, but I can try to sleep a little less just to knock some stuff out. And get things done. It could also be a path.
Get out of your
solution.
Right.
But I think the key, the really the most important thing is how we see ourselves. How much is your time worth? Mm-hmm. If I'm finding myself doing, $5 an hour work, okay, am I a $5 an hour person? Just because I have, I have time freedom does not mean that I should be doing that kind of work. Only if it gives you joy, right? And happiness and all that. Or should I be focusing on doing things that's really like $1,000 an hour, right? Because there's no limit in the value of our time. There's no ceiling. There's also no bottom. It could be worth 0, which makes $5 an hour worth something. But do you really want to do that also? So I think that's also an awareness and a pattern we want to spot out, and I think it will surface during our audits how we spend our time.
Yeah, and long term, I love that. And long term as well, you'll notice that those zapped hours where you're literally like wasting time and energy, or maybe doing things that you don't want to do, and then you start shifting it in a more aligned way, and you start actually getting at, because you actually enjoy what you're doing, because you'll notice that when you're doing the things you don't want to do, you feel drained even when you're not doing something. So it's you're literally energizing yourself when you're doing things in your favor. And maybe organization isn't your strength, but the feeling of getting it completed is the win.
I have found that, especially in the beginning, organizing didn't give me energy. But what the outcome, when everything is organized and the maintaining of that, it does give me energy, because it's not that much work to get it organized, right? Because it has already been, it's not that much work to maintain it, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And the benefit I've been reaping from the organization was what feeds it. But kind of getting over that inertia, right? Getting over that hump, perhaps it's harder to surmount in the beginning, and maybe we need help or we need some encouragement or whatnot. So being aware of that, and really wanting to do it, right? Just go for that. So I was also gonna see if there's any questions on. the organization tool, and maybe you actually need to actually implement it. Start implementing before you have questions.
Yeah. Whoever's watching still, I'm not sure. I think it may be Tim or Lauren, but who knows? Hello, whoever's watching still. If you have any questions, we're here for you. And like Steve said, we'll be here every Friday for additional questions that may pop up between now and whenever we see you next. So no one's talking. Oh, I am here. I can't see your name, so I'm going to assume that is either Tim or Lauren, but I'm not sure. Hello. And all right, well, we're at our 1 hour and I thoroughly enjoyed that. Thank you so much. Hey, Tim, awesome. Glad you made it through that. I hope you get a lot of value from that too. And thank you for watching. We're here for you if you have any questions throughout the week as well too. But I also want to mention Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
And happy holidays to everyone who's watching.
I almost
yeah, it's easy to almost forget when you're busy with life, but I also want to say I appreciate you guys for being here. I appreciate you, Steve, for sharing your wisdom and
thank you
for shining a light on a lot of dark places that may help a ton of people. So we appreciate that.
Thank you for having me. Happy holidays, everybody, and Merry Christmas. And we'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.